5.24 a gallon. Nothing surprising there. West Coast at 4.66, and cheapest fuel continues to be on the Gulf Coast at 3.70 a gallon. So nice trend there. Good to have it under $4. It is going up to 3.66 currently on the gas side, but to keep that under $4, again, as we've talked about with fuel surcharges, as it goes down, you can make money off those fuel surcharges. So if you're a smaller fleet, large fleet, or just a one truck operation, if you get a fuel surcharge included in your rate, which you would with a direct customer, it can be where you make a little bit extra compared to when fuel goes up as a lagging indicator. Now, with that said, we still have a lot of fleets relying on the spot market where it's an all-in rate. That has at least improved a little bit on the spot market rate.
Yeah, so we want to talk about the van rates because that's definitely where MVT is. So it's at $1.90.
Yep.
And flatbed, I know that MVT doesn't do flatbed, but I always still write it down because we're in that season. So it's $2.47. And reefer down a little bit, but it's at $2.11.
Yeah, and the thing to keep in mind with that $1.90 is most fleets are running anywhere between 10 to 15% empty. So that only includes loaded miles. So for a lot of fleets, if you're heavily dependent on the spot market, that $1.90 really is more closely going to be about $1.80 to $1.75 when you include in your empty miles on that. And of course, the challenge on most of your spot markets is also live load.
Right.
So you're having to wait in between each load. So again, we have a lot of people that a year ago were relying on stuff at $2.20, $2.50 a mile, which made up for that because the rates were so high. There's still a few business owners out there that are running businesses that are depending on $2 a mile freight in the world of dry van. So it's still suppressed compared to where it needs to be. But things are moving in the right direction. On the flatbed side, that would make, I believe, 7 out of the last 9 weeks where that rate's continued to go up. Of course, you see a lot of places like Home Depot, Lowe's starting to get flowing again out of the garden section. On the van rates, we can tell you there's a lot of customers that had relied on the broker boards to deliver really cheap freight, that those customers are now having conversations and looking at options. So those are all good signs. They are not where they need to be, but it points to the second half of the year being honestly pretty fun after a depressing first half for most of the industry.
Yes, and I'm just ready for June. I keep saying June. I've never said June this much in my life, but I am just ready for June. June.
The thing I will tell you in this current environment, if you're a driver, be it where you're joining the Sea of Valley Transportation or XYZ Trucking, is to make yourself attractive. You are going to be in a position where you will make really good money, and we'll get back into an arms race, competing for drivers, having to go and do pay increases as rates increase. The key at this moment as a driver is don't job hop, make that next choice a really big selection. Take your time, ask questions, have a detailed conversation with your recruiter in order to make that choice, because it's still a market where the carrier and the shipper are much more in control of that job situation, where the second half of the year you'll start seeing drivers have a lot more leverage in that negotiation.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. And when going back up, talking about the diesel with these fluctuations and everything, just making sure you stand steady and not dealing with the heavy on the foot. Be light on that pedal, making sure that you're not getting no speeding tickets or just not speeding at all. That is one of the biggest ways to control your diesel, your own diesel.
And look, I know the old adage in this industry is miles equal dollars. That is not the case. It is what is your time and your effort worth. So yes, you will get mileage pay, but at the end of the day, when we talk about why you'd come to MVT, we get in that discussion of having contracted customer freight versus broker freight. Broker freight serves a purpose. There's loads that you need from a broker. But if a company's main customer is C.H. Robinson, that's not a good sign. Nothing against C.H. Robinson. They got to make money like everybody else. But if your broker is your leading customer, you're going to spend a lot of time sitting. You cannot afford to sit, but you also have to go controlled down the road at a steady pace. Generally on the highways, you're going to be figuring at about 62 to 65 miles an hour.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. So let's get into talking about April 30th. We got an April 30th business.
Yep. Got the broker, I believe Ritchie Brothers is going to be the broker for Yellow's equipment. So Yellow should be having that go out April 30th. I know they're starting in the Northeast and Central U.S. There's a lot of beat up old equipment from Yellow to get auctioned off here. It will go to somebody. I suspect most of it will get used in local delivery moves or last mile moves. Some of it most likely gets sold overseas. We'll see what the appetite is, but it's a large amount of equipment that will have to get gobbled up by an industry in a time where equipment is not that hot at this moment. OEMs are showing that their Class 8 truck orders are down substantially compared to 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So it is the opportunity if somebody wants some real cheap trucks. There is a place for it. You will see older equipment get used for last mile moves, intermodal moves.
Yeah, I say intermodal.
Intermodal, where you're not ever going through a scale, so you don't have to worry about your maintenance score like you would other carriers. But with that said, I suspect a large percentage of it gets sold off either into Africa or parts of Russia. Of course, that might not happen with some of the sanctions we have. So that's going to be interesting to see how cheap that equipment goes.
Yeah, we'll definitely see a lot of the good stuff from Yellow was the assets they had, not the trucks. And everybody knows trucks are not your assets because they depreciate.
Yep.
So if you didn't know that, trucks are typically not going to be an asset for you on that side of the sheet because of how much they depreciate. So now let's get into talking about this clearinghouse and where we still get this hole, even though the FMCSA is trying to fix it, and they're going to fix it for us. They're going to fix it. So I am kind of excited about this rule that's coming out.
Yeah, so there's about 158,000 drivers in our industry that have been hit on the clearinghouse, put in prohibitive status for a failed drug test or drug and alcohol test. Of that, about 30% of those drivers have at least started the process to work their way back into the industry. Mixed results on that. There are some smaller fleets that aren't actively participating like they're supposed to be because the clearinghouse has had about 10,500 related violations, including 2,000 failures to register in the clearinghouse, period. On the roadside last year, almost 5,400 drivers were placed out of service for violations in the clearinghouse, meaning prohibited drivers were still driving, still actively driving. Currently, if you go to a weigh scale, they can catch that. They can run your clearinghouse at the weigh scale, and a DOT officer will say, you're not supposed to be driving, you're in a prohibited status at this moment. If you get pulled over by Barney Fife, he's not running your stuff. He's just not running that information, so he doesn't have that visibility. Starting November 18th, though, that will take place to where it will report to the DMV. So if you're on the road driving and you get pulled over, they'll go, wait a minute, you don't have a CDL because you've been downgraded. So if the clearinghouse don't get you, if the PSP doesn't get you, what will end up happening is you'll get pulled over for an unrelated reason. It could be speeding, it could be they had a light was out, and they'll go, wait a minute, you don't have a CDL, which brings us to the calendar because we got that safety blitz coming up in May.
Right, in May is the safety blitz, so it could just be a regular road check from the 14th, 15th, and 16th for the international road check that's going to be North America. So there's Canada, United States, and Mexico. So if you remember from last week with Nimmer, Josue, and I talking about the two things, the air brake check and then the clearinghouse, the drug and alcohol clearinghouse that we talked about. And everything, but like you were about to talk about is how it's still that amount of fraudulent carriers that have not actually put their drivers into the clearinghouse. So
so what's going to happen here is, as a carrier, if you come and fail a drug test for me, I'm supposed to report that within 3 days. Now, it used to be I could fail a drug test at XYZ Trucking, and if I hurried up and got hired the next week, I theoretically survived. They're now cutting that loophole out. As a carrier, I am going to adhere to that 3 days. Meaning, if I get a failed drug test, I'm going to have it on the clearinghouse within that 3 days. Additionally, you as the driver, because of that 3-day window, won't have time to go on to your next carrier. Your next carrier will have run that clearinghouse by that point and would have already seen that. So that by November 18th should be cleared up. They suspect that this probably impacts another 50 to 60,000 people. They don't really know the answer. It will be a large chunk of drivers. Now, granted, we have 3.5 million CDL holders in this industry. About 2.1 do what we do, Class 8 trucks, full tractor trailer. So it's not the end of the world, but in a world where we tend to be on a really tight leash as far as the amount of capacity, that will drive up those broker rates that we were talking about that are sitting right now at $1.90. So if you take away, let's say 10 to 15% of the capacity, that's worth pushing up that rate by itself up to 205, 210 a mile. It's not the worst thing in the world for us. It makes my job and Camille's job a little more stressful as we look for potential drivers. But there's a big chunk of drivers that, look, if you're going to fail a road test, this is not the industry for you. If you're going to fail a drug test, this is not the industry for you. If you're going to drive dangerously and put other people at risk, probably not the job for you. So as a good driver, as a professional on the road, this is technically a really good thing.
Yeah.
However, that's coming. And so, if you know anybody that fits that bucket, or as I would tell any driver, if you know you have a problem, I'd probably seek help. Because it's much better for you personally to seek help than for the industry to do it for you.
Right. And it's about being a professional driver. So basically the things that you just mentioned, it's not the only things, but the points that you just mentioned is about being a professional driver, right? And then definitely I like that the FMCSA is not allowing the fraudulent carriers. Me being a third-party recruiter, I get tired of the drivers being the only ones that are being punished or having to take all of the weight.
Yeah.
Now the carriers, and it's typically a lot of the mid to small that are doing this. The megas tend to make sure that because they get audited. It's a lot more departments that they have to answer to. I guess I should say it like that. But they're going to have to, or definitely put their drivers into the clearinghouse like it should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, a lot of carriers have what's called plausible deniability, where out of sight, out of mind, if I can claim I didn't know, I can't really be taken task for it. That is not the case anymore. They will know. They'll be required to run it. If they didn't run it, they most likely will get closed down fairly quickly at this point. And so this is where both the driver, when we first got into a lot of stuff with weigh scales and a number of the tickets, the driver had a lot of accountability where the carrier had very little. In actuality, that's evened up substantially. Carriers are now held to account because of their CSA scores. They're held to account that your PSP points are their PSP points. They share that from a maintenance score standpoint, to where you'd have a dispatcher telling you, I know you're overweight, run it anyways, and we'll pay the ticket later. Well, that didn't do you any favors. They may have paid the ticket, but it was still on your record. It's hard to do that now. We're intertwined. That is a good thing. The challenge for drivers in this is most drivers, like most office personnel, they're not legal beagles. They are not attorneys. Yeah. And so this all can be a little confusing whenever there is change. The key thing, if you manage yourself, if you manage what you do and act as a professional on the road, it should not be scary. And the fewer that are allowed to do it unprofessionally go away, we all make more money because of it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. And I like the fact that if any issues is spread across the board, it's not just heavy on the driver, but the carriers are there and it's check and balances.
Well, and I get a lot of drivers that ask me, hey, how come I got rejected? Why am I not allowed here? Why am I not allowed here? One of the things that a lot of carriers learned in 2018 was when we had those two major lawsuits in Texas. One was a large mega carrier. One was a smaller carrier that no longer exists at this point. But the reason why we had those $100 million lawsuits is they had written policies. We do not hire people if they have this, this, and this. And then they hired those people. And I don't know about you, but if I'm responsible for bringing a $100 million lawsuit to MVT, I'm probably not on this episode next week. I'm going to have large scale issues. And so as a driver, there's not a lot of wiggle room in this hiring process, especially at this moment. Carriers have their truck filled, or a lot of carriers have their truck filled, not all. The key thing though is recruiters are very tied into, I can only take a square peg and stick it in a square hole. I can't have that other way around. And so one of the things as a driver right now is you've got to watch your record, because at this point on the clearinghouse, this will not end here. There'll be other parts that a driver's held accountable to and a carrier's held accountable to. Between CSA, between PSPs, between the clearinghouse, as we've talked about, whenever the ATA or OIDA have to go out to Washington, it's worried about what comes next. There will be a next, but as a driver, if you protect your record, your background, and you're careful out there and act professional on the road, it will be difficult because of change, but you'll be fine.
I love it. I love it. So what we're going to do, Lissa, let's go to our first commercial. And then when we come back, we'll jump right into the hot jobs. As we always say, MVT has a lot of jobs available, but we definitely have 3 really, really good openings for you guys. Okay, so Lissa, let's definitely go to our first commercial. Welcome back, everybody. And we have another really cute inventory that's going to be coming out later this week from Faces of the Road. It's going to be really cute, and I hope you all cry just like I'm going to cry too. I get really emotional. So, Lissa, you're going to get emotional too. Pearson is going to be crying. He's already going to be emotional.
I'm an emotional guy. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it. So, Lissa, if you can pull up Division 230 for us on the screen. Look at there. Look at there.
Awesome. Division 230, averaging about $1,350 to $1,650 a week, really based off of experience. We require at least 6 months of experience running full tractor trailer in the last year, or 1 year in the last 3 years. This is a nice division from a geography standpoint. Tesla is going to be a big account here, though we will mix it with about 40% other freight direct customers. Running the Southeast U.S., we're always looking for drivers out of El Paso, Texas, and San Antonio on this, but we've also expanded it, doesn't show on there, but we've also expanded it out to Laredo, Texas. So Laredo, San Antonio, El Paso, steady miles, lots of drop and hook. You'll see a little bit of SoCal, but because it's Tesla, a lot of Northern California. And as they continue to expand out their headquarter and operation out there in Austin, Texas, we will continue to add capacity out there as well out of the San Antonio market. Popular division, though, we are averaging about 3 to 5 people joining us a week for this division. Have room to grow it another 15 to 20 drivers. In particular, teams do very well on this. And so even though it's the majority of it solo, if you do have someone you want to partner up with, be it a spouse, a friend, a neighbor, somebody that you feel comfortable in the truck with, you'll see that you're going to average on a per driver basis in that $1,800 per week range. So as a team, anywhere between $3,600 to $4,000 a week, which if it's a husband and wife team, as an example, really nice steady household income coming in with real good home time. Going to get home every single week. Generally speaking, though, you're going to be in pleasant weather. You're not having to deal with snow and rainfall. You're running the desert. So a lot of people that run this division in particular like the fact that they don't have to really worry about winter weather that much. This is not one of the divisions where they're having to run through that. So again, that's Division 230. The next division we're going to take a look at here is 430, Division 430. If you live out of the Jacksonville area, another geographic preference for a lot of people is If you live in Jacksonville, you know every recruiter is trying to get you to the Northeast. They're going to either have you go to Atlanta and you're going to have to deal with the traffic in Atlanta around 285, or they're going to send you up I-95 and plead with you to go north of the Beltway of DC or into the Atlantic Midwest. Mid-Atlantic is what it's called. Helps if I get my vocabulary correctly. But they're going to have you go in the direction that is a lot of stress. This here on this division, you're running a whole lot of I-10. You're going from Jacksonville, making a stop in Houston, picking up a load in Houston, going to Laredo, and then from Laredo coming back to Jacksonville. Big customer on this is going to be Lowe's. We run a lot of Lowe's out of Valdosta, Georgia, as well as along the way in other locations. Lowe's probably makes up about 60% of this. We have a really good relationship with them because we have a good driver base there already that does a fantastic job for them. We have about a 99% on-time percentage rate. So we're looking for other professionals that can join us and help us completely pick up more freight in that market. So with that said, if you live within 75 miles of Jacksonville, so it could be Valdosta, it could be Lake City, it could be Gainesville, it could be St. Augustine, or anywhere around the Jacksonville area, we have a secure drop yard there. About 50 individuals already work with us out of that market, looking to expand that out to 70. Really good equipment. Again, pay-wise, you're going to be anywhere between $1,100 to $1,300 a week. You're going to get home every single week, generally out for about 4.5 days before you get that home time, based off of how long that trip takes to go in and out again. So you go out 4.5 days, 5 days, depending on how quickly you get it done. You're home for your 34, and the process starts all over again.
So you telling me that Nimmer and Rachel need to put 20 drivers on Division 430 for this I-10 run?
I absolutely. Now, what I would tell you, though, like I would tell you and I tell any of our drivers, we are very careful to hire the right amount of drivers to go with the right amount of freight. As an example, we try to add, on this account, we'll add about 3 to 4 drivers a week until we get to that number.
Okay.
Because my goal with any division that we have here is we get very specific. I don't have a lot of open trucks.
Okay.
So we are very strategic of making sure that if I hire you, I'm going to have the freight for you. That's one of the things that a lot of carriers don't often do. And it's why a lot of drivers, their first 90 days at a carrier are difficult because they're trying to find their way. On the driver's end, they have to try and find a footing in a brand new place. Then if you top it with the fact that the freight may not align with the driver count, that's a horrible deal for a driver, and you've just made a change only to make things worse. So we're very strategic about the number of drivers we bring. We'll bring on about 3 to 4 a week for this division until we get to about that 70 number, and then we'll evaluate depending on freight opportunities.
Okay. Really good. Lisa, can you go back to 230 again? I have a question back there. Thanks, Lisa. You're doing really good with this Vanna White thing. I might have the wrong game show, but just pretend, Lisa. Just pretend. Okay, so how many do you need on the 230? I know 3 to 4 a week, but
yeah, it's 3 to 4 a week, and we're looking to expand that out by 20.
Okay.
In particular, we could use 4 to 5 teams because that expedited freight is where we seem to be gaining a lot of ground right now. Again, and a team doesn't always have to be pre-made. You may know another driver, and if you get along with that person, and look, some people do not belong in a truck together. Other people, hey, I've always wanted to run with this guy. He's my best friend. So if you have a team, it's a really good division. We can take a team on almost any division that we have, but 230 is a really good division for teams.
Okay, so Deborah, you hear that? 4 to 5 teams Pearson needs. Okay. And then do you know what I know you know what customer. Are you at liberty to tell us what customer?
Oh, no, the main customer on this is Tesla.
Okay. Okay, and now Vanna White, if you can go to 440, is that the game show? This would be.
Feels like we're off, but we're right too. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
You're not spinning any letters, but we'll get there.
We're kind of, sort of. Alyssa, you're there. Look at you, Alyssa.
Good deal. Division 440. Again, this gets into a nice geography here. We hire out of Nashville, Memphis, and Houston. Out of these markets here, we're running out of Texas, going up into the southeast U.S. We're going to see some of the Carolinas. We're going to see central Tennessee, a little bit of Kentucky, and then we're heading back down into Texas. Could go as far south as Laredo. Again, our big spots are going to be Houston. It's going to be Memphis, Nashville. Pays anywhere between $1,100 to $1,300 a week. Again, really good weekly home time. Route takes 5 to 7 days. We have a really nice secure drop yard in all those locations and a terminal there in Nashville. So if you're out of Memphis, you're going to do orientation in Nashville. If you're out of Houston, we're most likely going to have you do orientation out of Laredo, Texas. This division here is a mix of about 18 different customers.
Okay.
And this is what we talk about, the advantage of engineered lanes versus dedicated. Dedicated is generally one customer. Doesn't mean that you're always going the same direction. It may be one customer. So what I will tell anybody is, if you like the customer, that's fantastic. That is great if you like the customer. If you don't like the customer, that's the job. With dedicated, it is a dedicated customer. On this division, there's not one single customer. It's technically a mix of about 18 different customers that we work with directly here. All those customers we've had for at least 10 plus years. So they're customers that know us. They've seen our trucks. They know what we do. The nice thing here is if you don't like one customer, there's 17 other customers. So that's the advantage of an engineered lane, or some carriers will call it an optimized lane, is you're running the same locations over and over and over again, which allows you to be familiar. Where do you like to stop? Where do you don't like to stop? You can pre-plan more efficiently because you know, hey, if I'm coming into Houston at 3 p.m., that's probably not good for me. Let's see if I can pre-plan this out versus when the delivery is needed. So one of the things you'll find on this here, really good customers, really been with us a long time. All those customers have been with us 10 plus years, and some growing opportunities. We've had some wins on the sales side without getting into detail out of the Carolinas and Nashville. So this is another division that's going to most likely be expanding over the next coming months because we appear to have a lot of opportunity from a capacity standpoint and a customer standpoint in those markets. So this is a division to keep an eye on closely. Again, we generally try to add 3 to 4 a week on this. I don't have a set quote at this moment because if I can manage that 3 to 4 a week, we probably continue to expand out this division.
I love it. Yeah, this is a good growing division right here. I like to write all this stuff down because in case things change, because week by week things can change. So listen, if you can put the number up there, but the number to definitely give us a call is 281-968-3100, 281-968-3100, or you can go directly to the website at rigonwheels.com and click on the driver application and complete the Intella app. Everything will populate for you and make sure everything is correct, or you can fill out the entire thing by itself. Yeah, sure. Listen, if you could, now what we want to do, let me say this. MVT has a lot of other jobs available, and if these jobs don't fit you, we do have other companies as well, but MVT has a lot of other jobs available. So
let me point out, obviously we're based in El Paso, Las Cruces, so we would always take somebody out of those markets there. But if you live in the metro area for Phoenix, Salt Lake City, Portland, Oregon, Denver, Albuquerque, the DFW market, San Antonio, Houston, Laredo, Memphis, Little Rock, anywhere in the state of Kentucky or Tennessee, Jacksonville, and there's about a dozen other locations. Do not be limited to what you saw as the hot jobs. We always have about 18 different divisions available. And then you have an extensive client base with about 40 other carriers. So the nice thing is, if you don't fit for MVT or we don't fit you, the nice thing when you talk to Camille's team here is they're going to have a lot of questions. They're going to want to know a lot about what your wants and needs are, because if you're not a fit for MVT, chances are they do have the fit somewhere along the line.
Absolutely. So definitely give us a call at 281-968-3100, 281-968-3100, or like I said, go directly to the website at rigonwheels.com. Okay. So listen, if you can go ahead, take us to commercial. When we come back, we are going to talk about winning the car and the leaderboard.
Absolutely.
Okay. All righty.
Mi nombre es Carlos Vázquez. Tengo trabajando 3 años aproximadamente y somos B1 y andamos en territorio de Estados Unidos. Lo que me gusta de MVT es que tiene buenos viajes, buenos camiones y muy buenas millas. Mi comunicación con el despacho es muy buena y todo eso, y siempre están a la orden del día. ¿Qué pienso del equipo de los camiones? Pues que están muy bien y les dan sus mantenimientos, su TO y todo lo demás, alineación y balanceo, todo, cambio de llantas y excelente servicio. La compañía cada trimestre regala un auto para los operadores. Me motiva pues a crecer más como persona y pues, para dar el 100, como dicen, para la compañía.
My name is Stacy Morton, and my position is OTR driver, and I've been with the company for 8 months. I enjoy being with part of the family because good miles, nice people, they listen to the drivers. The pay is excellent here at MVT. The home time is very good. You get to go home anytime you want. The dispatchers are really nice. They listen to the drivers, whatever you want. They will do their best to give you what you need. And the equipment is good, and safety is excellent. Yeah, they're fast, and the roadside is good. They listen to you, and they get the job fixed in a timely manner. Yeah, I would recommend other drivers to come to MVT because this is a good place to work, and you get excellent home time and everything that you need here.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Okay, so Pearson is going to take us through the fuel. Take us through the whole thing.
Yeah. So we're real big on fuel here. There's a couple ways as a carrier. Once you bought the truck and you got the customer, you got to save money here. This is a tight industry where the pennies equal dollars. And there's two ways you can do that. You can do it with fuel, or you can cut driver pay. Now, we're not going to cut driver pay. That's not even been a conversation while freight levels have been shaky in this industry. We have never had that conversation. But you can do it on fuel, and fuel economy is a major deal, especially if you start having 1,000+ trucks. So in an industry that averages 6.5 miles a gallon, we average about 9.5 miles a gallon. There's a number of reasons for that, but the biggest contributing factor by far is driver behavioral trends. So we reward those that reward us with good fuel economy. Mm-hmm. We have great equipment. There's a lot of benefits to the equipment that we'll get to later on here. But from a fleet standpoint, we give you the tools and resources to do the job effectively. And so last month, as an example, our best fuel economy was 12.6 miles a gallon. The month before that, it was approaching 12.7. We work with our drivers to do that. So as our drivers end up getting the best fuel economy for the quarter, at every quarterly driver appreciation event, we reward that person with a brand new car. So as an example, we had a team that had been in the industry all of 9 months that got the award a couple quarters ago, averaging 12.4 miles a gallon. They ended up taking cash value because you can't cut a car in half.
That's what I was about to say.
It depreciates. Yeah, it depreciates.
I thought you saw the car in half.
No? It would have made quite the video, but yeah, it would have depreciated the value quickly. So we split the money. But generally, it's a 2022, 2023 Nissan Sonata. We're going to give another one away coming up here in May for the previous quarter. So looking forward to that. Additionally, whoever has the best average for the year is going to get $25,000. So we do that every single year. We used to give away a Harley Davidson. Did not work out well because not everybody wants a Harley Davidson. With that said, that $25,000 goes a long way. There's no limit. You could theoretically win a car and win it again and again if you can do it over and over again. But there's a lot of competition. The drivers take this very seriously, and so do the fleet managers. Literally, you can see where you rank. And so if you want to improve on your fuel economy inside the cab on our communication platform, you're able to see specifically what your miles per gallon are and where you rank versus the other drivers in the company. Additionally, you can go into any of our terminals, and we have it up on the wall. Every Monday it's updated, so you can see where you are in the pecking order of who has the best fuel economy out there. I can tell you it is not divisional dependent. Every division that we have has had a winner on a quarterly basis. So there's not a division that you're at a strategic disadvantage. The key is understanding if you're running Division 230 as an example, take advantage of the Santa Ana winds and ride that fuel economy going back east. If you're in Division 400, where you're going to deal with some of the Appalachian Mountains, understanding not trying to go pedal to the metal uphill and utilizing the hills as you go downhill to get fuel economy. This is a situation, I describe it like the story of the rabbit versus the hare, or the rabbit versus the turtle. The turtle wins in the long run here. It's not the person that's jamming the pedal to the metal trying to get as much out of the truck all the time. It is understanding the value of pre-planning, not hard braking, not constantly going on and off the road. There's a strategy. We also have a department called Driver Services that specifically works with making our drivers safe and more productive. We have a lot of information that comes off the truck that with the driver, we're able to come up with a game plan that will improve your safety, your performance, your fuel economy, on-time percentage. So we look at it from a career development standpoint that, yeah, we do want to deliver the load today, but we also want to make you a better driver over the course of your lifetime with MVT.
I love that because that's a career development center.
It is.
That's really what that is. And that is what we try to tell drivers, that you don't have to just stay in one position. And whether or not you still want to be a driver, you can still move around within that. So whether it means moving to a different drive van, flatbed, that type of thing, if you're trying to move around in that type of way, or a different division.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, a different division, as well as we have people that go on with us to become trainers.
Mm-hmm.
Training the next generation of drivers. Trainers make $120,000 to $150,000 a year. We have people that become owner-operators through MVT. We don't hire owner-operators off the street, but we have a program where they can get their own truck and continue to work with us. We have people that do go in-house, join as a mechanic with Penske, end up coming in-house and working as a fleet manager with us. And our company is filled with drivers from top to bottom, literally. Our CEO and founder of the company, Royal Jones, still has an active CDL and started as a driver when he started the company 42 years ago with 5 trucks.
Wow. That's amazing right there. But it's 2 things I like other than giving away the car and the money and stuff like that, but it's the leaderboard, of course, the competition. They're able to actually see where they rank. I remember the day that you told me about that. And then the fact that there is an actual career center. Can you tell me what the career center is called again?
Well, yeah, Driver Services. And they want to make you as successful as possible. It's good for you and good for us if we invest in your career together. So the more successful you are, and this is the hard part in our industry, is I've heard drivers say, I'm just a driver. And I hate hearing it that way. It'd be like me telling, I'm just a VP of recruiting, or I'm just a fry cook at the McDonald's. You should have purpose in your job.
Right.
You should like what you do and be proud of what you do and be able, quite frankly, to be a little braggadocious with people about what you do. So we don't look at it as I'm just hiring a driver. I'm hiring a professional, and that professional on the road wants to get better. They want to get efficient. They want to be safe. They want to be courteous, and they want to be successful at what they do. So we put our money where our mouth is. We invest heavily into your career. We don't want you just to come on board. We want you to enjoy where you work at. We want you to be successful where you work at.
And that's the reason why your retention is very good.
It is.
At MVT. Investing in your colleagues.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like you would any other position. It doesn't matter if it's an office position or a driver on the road. A lot of companies have these silos where they view people differently depending on what they do within the company. The drivers have the same career advancement opportunities as somebody working in HR at this moment.
Yeah. Well, I have a question. Drivers have been asking our recruiters this about different companies. So since you're here, we're going to ask you, why don't you have a lot of freight or any freight going to California? So
we do. We do. Some companies don't, but we do. There's a lot of business disadvantages of operating in California. California is a hard state, not to go down too much of a political wormhole here. California could be a very hard state to operate, and I'll give you a couple of examples here. If you have an HR person in California, you don't have that same HR person because they need additional certifications above and beyond. If you have a driver in one market versus another, having employees in California is difficult. It's not that you don't want to hire out there, but there's a whole lot of legalities that come with that. When you look at the state that just increased the minimum wage for fast food workers to $20 an hour, well, even if you don't have a fast food restaurant, it impacts your business because now eventually your processor at a trucking company now has to be paid more. Your data entry person needs to be paid more. And essentially 6 months later, everybody's paying more for stuff, but no one's gotten ahead. Nobody. And so it's a hard state to operate in. There is freight that comes in and out of the ports. The Port of Los Angeles and Chicago go back and forth as far as the biggest freight markets in the country. Chicago's not exactly easy, but you can get freight in and out of there fairly quickly. Getting freight in and out of the ports can be a chore.
Right.
Now, they have adjusted some of it where they'll do local moves, and the Inland Empire has grown substantially as far as warehouses. But now that's starting to be slowed down through regulation and being able to get in and out of there. It is a tough state to operate in. And if the money's not there to justify the risk versus reward that companies have to go through, you'll see a lot of companies try to avoid the state entirely. We have local drivers that live in California, but outside of that, we don't really hire in California. And unless we have specific customers that have a need that goes there, we try not to deal with it because there's not enough upside. Now, we're fortunate. The vendors that we have out of that area, Lowe's, Tesla, some other companies, they are extremely adaptive to us as a carrier that in order for us to provide them with the service that they need. So part of it comes into having a partnership with a customer based out there that will help you work through those hurdles. Now, for a lot of companies that deal with owner operators, it's a whole nother story, and that gets into a bill called AB 5, which defines what you consider an independent contractor. There is a place for independent contractors in our industry, though we don't deal with a lot of them with MVT. Look, Landstar serves a valuable role in this industry. Bennett, Jones Motor Freight, independent contractors make up about 450,000 drivers in our industry.
Yes.
They are a valuable piece of that, and they have a lot of flexibility as a one-man operation compared to that large mega carrier. California has made it hard to work with independent contractors because if you own the truck and you can turn down freight and decide when you leave and when you don't leave, that's fine, but you don't want to be classified as an employee. At that point, you're not an employee. You are an independent contractor, and the state seems dead set on creating that person as an employee. If you're an employee and I have to pay for your health insurance and I have to pay for a whole bunch of other stuff, I can't let you stay at home. I can't let you dictate how you use your equipment. And so California makes it very hard to do business there.
Yeah, and they make it very hard, and not to get too political, but they make it very hard to do business with a lot of industries.
Yeah,
to be very honest.
And I'll be honest here. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. If you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, our driver base is probably pretty mixed politically, though I've never done the survey. With that said, when you have a jurisdiction where one party dominates versus the other and there's no counterpoint, generally speaking, you will find if you look at our country, the best a president does is when he has a party that's the opposite in Congress. So if you look at the Clinton years, it's because he had a Republican Congress, and vice versa. When one party tends to dominate, you don't have an opposing view going, hey, I don't like that. That's part of the challenge in California is generally outside of Bakersfield and Orange County, it's dominated by Democrats. And in that situation, the loudest voice is going to end up being what leads the group. And that can create some tricky situations, i.e., how you have somebody flipping a burger making $20 an hour, which I can't explain that one. But yet Panera Bread doesn't have to do it. I don't know.
So we got a question that came in about SAP. When is it that MVT will look at a SAP driver?
I don't care about SAP. Like we don't. You're either on the clearinghouse or you're not. So if you're on the clearinghouse, I can't work with you. If you're off the clearinghouse, I can.
What does that mean?
So if I failed a drug test someplace, right, and that's on the clearinghouse, now you could do return to work, but that means that's been taken off the clearinghouse. All that matters is if you're on the clearinghouse. If you're on the clearinghouse, I cannot hire you. Like I can't. Or if your PSP shows that you were driving when you weren't supposed to be driving because you were on the clearinghouse, that's another issue. But if you're on the clearinghouse, so the question is, did you fail a pre-employment drug screen, or did you fail part of the random testing pool? Because everybody has their random testing pool. If you failed or refused or no-showed, and it's gone on the clearinghouse, I can't move forward.
Okay.
Which is what the carriers that are not at that will be at that by November 18th. Because as much as we talk about SAP, and it's still part of what we discuss in dialogue-wise, by November there is no such thing as SAP. If you went to SAP, I literally could care less about that. By the time we get to November, the other carriers will catch up to that. The SAP's not important. You're either on the clearinghouse or if you're not. If you've not registered to the clearinghouse, and you may have been at the same carrier for the last 3 years, as an example, so you might not be on the clearinghouse because you haven't applied. You should get on the clearinghouse, the FMCSA clearinghouse. It's part of your record. You should know what's on there. Definitely don't want something there on mistake, though there shouldn't be. But at the end of the day, if you're on the clearinghouse, meaning that you've had a failed drug test and it shows on the clearinghouse, the SAP conversation doesn't take place.
And then I have another question. I'm kind of confused about this question, but I'll ask it two ways to you, and then I'll answer it as well. First, are there any felony charges that MVT just will not take?
Human trafficking and sex that involves a minor.
Okay.
So if and look, we move 500 loads a day across the border. Human trafficking's bad no matter where you are, but from a political PR standpoint, given our relationship with cross-border freight, it would look horrible. The second part of that, though, is just human trafficking is a bad thing. We don't want to participate in it. And I get it as a driver. Hey, I found a hitchhiker and I picked him up. You do not want an unauthorized passenger in your vehicle. I don't care if you're with a large carrier or you're with just a small one-man operation. Having an unauthorized passenger in your vehicle, it's never positive, and I get it. You want to help somebody on the road. Someone says they need a ride. Their car is broken down. You put yourself in immediate danger. You do not know that person that is getting in the vehicle with you. Additionally, you don't know that person's background, why they're in the vehicle, where they're going. You don't know any of that stuff. There is no advantage as a professional. You are not like a four-wheeler going on vacation to Yellowstone. You are actively in the mobile office for all intents and purposes. You do not want to pick up people. We can't do it. And then anything involving sex with a minor, any type of felony on that, and we're not going to move forward. Now, any other felony, it really is a case-by-case basis. When I say it's case-by-case, we're looking at your whole body of work. So if I have a truck open, I may have 5 different candidates I'm looking at. Just because you have a felony is not a deal breaker. You're absolutely free to apply. I want you to apply. Depending on when I run your background will depend what state you come from. Some states are ban-the-box states. So if you're in New Mexico, as an example, I literally can't run your background until you get to orientation. Which does not necessarily do you any favors, but I would have that conversation and openly say, hey, I just want you to know I have this. We can have once you disclose it, we can have the dialogue. And if it's on your record, we're eventually going to see it. And I'd much rather just have an honest conversation with you. But what I can tell you is if I have 5 candidates and I have 1 truck, I'm looking at who has the best background, who has the most stable employment history, who has the safest background, fewest tickets, fewest accidents. If it's an aggressive felony, I'm looking for creature or habit. So let's say that you had an aggressive felony back 20 years ago. At a certain point, you've paid your debt to society. I recognize that fact. And so it really looks at your entire body of work. So let's say that you don't have any tickets or accidents. You've been at the same place the last 3 years. That aggressive background 20 years ago becomes much more of this person was young, they've made a mistake, they've paid their debt to society, and this is not a creature or habit. This is somebody that had a mistake that happened in their past. They need to move on, and they can't do that if they're not making a living. Now, on the flip side of it, where I will tell most drivers, and this is with a lot of companies, is if you have that aggressive felony or a violent felony, you can't afford to have a speeding ticket every 2 years and then a failure to obey sign. And then some, because at a certain point, when, you know, one of those lawyers with the billboards, the jackhammer, the strong arm, or I'm going to throw the truck guy, that guy is going to go and get a company in deposition and go, now this was a creature of habit. This
Yeah.
was a person that had
That's
a
a
violent
pattern.
felony. There was a pattern there. So that's the key, is this industry is still a valuable outlet for people that don't want to go back to jail or don't want to go back down a pathway to a bad life. This industry can still be that for somebody, but your record becomes really important.
Yeah.
You can't afford those speeding tickets. You can't afford to have failure to obey. You have to make sure that your record stays clean, and that becomes a one-off scenario, because then a company can take a little risk there and say, we're going to give this guy a second chance.
So what I can say is when we have companies, and like Pearson said, we recruit for quite a few different companies, and we have companies that say that certain felonies or certain criminal records will be, looked at manager's discretion. My thought is, and what I tell the recruiters, we have to make it make sense. So if you have a certain felony and then you see a pattern of other behaviors, that's not worth turning it in, because that's taking up the time for somebody else that might have that same felony, but they don't have the pattern. You can have a felony, but then if you have a pattern, you're still getting in trouble. You're still feeling that you can get away with stuff, even if it's speeding ticket. It doesn't matter. You're still getting in trouble. And if in your mind you feel like, oh, it's just a speeding ticket, you're not understanding. You're not comprehending what the situation is, which is fine, but we have to move past that. And so this is what I tell the recruiters. We have to make it make sense. If it doesn't make sense, don't turn it in, because we are taking up the time and opportunity for somebody else that can literally get their job. It's only so many trucks. So don't turn in an application and waste the internal recruiter's time or processor's time when it could have gone to another guy or another driver, another female. It doesn't, another them. It could have gone to someone else that had the same situation without the patterns. That is a big deal. Now, the same person wrote in again asking, and I guess in some states this can be, I just don't know. And I guess I do know, because it probably is Ohio or Pennsylvania, I'm guessing this person is from. Each region has their way when it comes to different misdemeanors or felonies. But a non-violent domestic felony.
Yeah, again, we look at the entire body of work. So an act of violence by itself is not necessarily enough. It's looking at the entire body of work. And this is the hard part as a candidate applying for a job, and it's not just truck drivers, it's anybody. When you apply for a job, we live in a very litigious world where you really want an answer. If someone said no, you want to know why. Like, why? Why'd you say no? Sometimes there's not a clear why because of the nature of what it is. And what I mean by that is, if I have 5 candidates and I have 1 truck, I'm going to have to make 4 people unsatisfied. There may be an individual that honestly I wanted to work with. I didn't have the truck available. There was 1 job. And so that's the key thing here is it's not, we are used as an industry to hiring to infinity. We're used to all the companies having hundreds of trucks sitting on the fence. And the problem right now is there's a lot of companies that may have a handful of trucks and they have 50 people wanting to come to class and they could only choose 5. Sometimes you're going to get, I'm sorry, we decided to pursue other candidates at this time, but we wish you the best in your future endeavors. I know that's not a satisfactory answer. You don't want to hear that. Sometimes there's 1 job and 5 people applying. If you're hiring a VP of recruiting, when I came to MVT, I'm probably guessing there was 8 other people they talked to. That meant 7 other people had to be talked to and told, we decided to pursue another candidate. We wish you the best in your future endeavor. I know it's not a satisfactory end to relationship. You want to end it on the best terms possible, but that's the industry that we're in right now. And as drivers, we got used to it. Since 2009 or so, there was always a bunch of trucks sitting out there. So most recruiters just hired to infinity. And you know it on your end. Your recruiters are used to just hiring, just keep hiring.
Keep hiring.
We don't live in that environment currently. And so as a driver, you may honestly not have that bad a record. It's just you have 5 people that beat you out for the job. And it's unsatisfactory. The big thing right now is once you get that job, the other thing is hold on to that job. Be patient. Give it time. Over communicate with your dispatcher. And in particular, even though you may have been told no 1 or 2 places, have that longer and honest and open conversation with your recruiter so that they can set you up for success no matter where you go.
Yeah, I agree. What I always just tell people is think about it as a corporate job now. It's not that you didn't qualify. It just might be someone else that is more qualified. That's literally, and that's how it works in a lot of different industries, a lot of different professions.
And this is where the value of Rig on Wheels kind of comes into play on this. If you call me direct, my recruiters are hiring for MVT. If you call Rig on Wheels, because I get it, if you're on the phone and you're talking to recruiter after recruiter after recruiter, it is a long, grueling process. You get tired of having the exact same conversation over again. And at a certain point, you feel like you filled out the same exact application over and over again. Where if you talk to Rig on Wheels, you can knock out about 40 at once because they're literally going to ask, what do you like to do? What do you not like to do? Let's talk about your background. There's some questions from a legal standpoint that Rig on Wheels can ask if they're not hiring somebody, they're placing somebody someplace that theoretically I can't ask you. I literally have to wait till later on in the process. But you can have that open discussion with Rig on Wheels. And I hope that it's MVT, but it might not be. It may be a company that, hey, you know what? This is actually a better fit for you because we know that you're going to get hired on here. And you're probably going to like their home time differently, maybe their equipment, maybe whatever the case may be. Not all 2 drivers are alike. They're all different as far as what their needs and wants are. But Rig on Wheels can do that for you. Alyssa, this would be a great time to put that phone number up again.
Yeah.
And so the key thing with Rig on Wheels is you call 281-968-3100 and have that open and honest discussion. If there's something in your background that you suspect, hey, this may be a deal breaker for me, I'd have that conversation, be open. In a lot of cases, it's not. It's just we have to place you at the right place that can take that right now. Or they can't take that now, but in about 90 days, maybe they'll be in a different truck situation. Let's talk 90 days from now. But have that conversation and they can get into a more detailed discussion with you, your unique spot. Because it sounds like you have a bit of a unique thing that doesn't fit into a perfect bucket. And they can have that more elaborate conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I feel like. It might be a little unique, and I definitely think you're probably in Ohio or Pennsylvania based on that last question that you asked about the nonviolent domestic violence. I used to get when I was on the phone. Used to get in Ohio misdemeanors for yelling. People would have misdemeanors for yelling, and that would be in Ohio. That's why I said that. But we definitely are closing out. Remember to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, because that's where definitely those questions came in from today. So we're getting quite a few viewers there. So like and subscribe there, and all of our LinkedIn viewers, we really appreciate you greatly, and everywhere else that you're watching or listening for our audio as well. So we are here live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Time, and we want everybody to definitely be safe. Pearson will be here again, and we'll have another special guest next week. So we are really excited about that. Pearson must really be liking the space and the caviar and champagne and mimosa. Did you say mimosa, or I'm making that up?
We'll give them a suggestion. Let's help them out.
Yeah. We'll give them a suggestion at the front. So roll out the red carpet for our special guest next week.
Little mariachi band. We can go over the top.
Yeah, why not? So anything you want to say to everybody?
Yeah, big thing here is you apply to a job again, like we talked about in the last segment here. Be detailed, have an extended conversation, ask a lot of questions. And at the end of the day, we want you to be successful long term, not just short term. So I'm not just trying to get you in the truck today. I want to brag about you and what you're doing on the road a year from now. So have that longer conversation, and I hope to have you as a coworker sooner rather than later.
Yes, definitely. All right. See you guys next week. Bye.